are you doing? Get out of here. You're wasting my time too. It's already been wasted enough. Again with the vaginal sniffing. Why has that become a thing? No, I don't want to make out. I don't want to make out. I don't want to make out. Okay. You have to take me to dinner. What are you doing? Oh my God. Oh gosh. We literally just came back from the dog park. Okay. You had your time. Now is my time. Get out. Get out. If I could go back in time and stop one event from happening, it would be the publishing of this book. What up, my channel? Welcome back to another video. I'm Jessie, and you're watching. We're back. We're here we are again.
Here we are again.
This is going to be my latest episode in the Waste My Time series, where I talk about all of the books that wasted my time. Today's video is going to be dedicated to a book that is a Black mystery thriller centering secret societies at Harvard University. Dark academia is all the freaking rage, and I have really wanted to get into dark academia and enjoy those stories. I love creepy stories that are set at school. I love academic settings, but my issue with these books that I've seen everybody recommending, they are just really white. I am so freaking tired. I conducted a bunch of research looking for dark academia books by BIPOC authors. On my search, I encountered The Ancient Nine, and this book is the worst thing that ever happened to me. In this book, we are following a young Black man who comes from a poor neighborhood in Chicago. He works incredibly hard and is accepted into Harvard University. But once he gets his foot through the door, a secret society reaches out to him and offers him to become a part of their vetting process. Little does he know, this club was founded in the 19th century by some of the country's most powerful tycoons, and out of all of the secret societies that exist at Harvard, this is not only the oldest, but the most elite. This is the cream of the crop, y'all. And as he starts to realize the influence of this club, how everybody who becomes a part of this club is in a wild position of power, makes it onto Forbes lists, becomes politicians, senators, etc. They go on to become wildly successful, absolutely drowning in money and jewels and everything that their hearts could desire. But within this club exists the Ancient Nine, which is a group of 9 members whose sole purpose is to make sure the club's deep, dark, dirty secrets always stay buried. And when Spencer begins digging into the case of a young boy who mysteriously vanished while trying to break into this very club in the early 1900s, he ends up on their radar, having to solve the mystery of what happened to this boy before he suffers the same fate. That sounds amazing, right? I was like, yo, there's a Black dark academia thriller. This thriller is also written by a Black doctor who attended, I think, 2 Ivy League institutions. He's a graduate of he is a graduate of Harvard, Columbia, and the University of Chicago's Pritzker School of Medicine. This is not only a story from a medical doctor, but this is a narrative from somebody who deeply and intimately knows Harvard's history of secret societies. And so because of that unique insight that this author likely had, I was even more excited about this book. Furthermore, I absolutely love fiction books that are written by medical doctors. Some of my favorite fiction books, such as The Antidote for Everything, was written by a medical doctor. I just love the way that they tend to write and weave stories. This book was checking all of my boxes. It came out in 2016, I believe, so it is somewhat of a recent release. And I was wondering, why am I not seeing hype for this book?
Is it because of racism?
I mean, it was on the New York Times bestseller list. So why isn't anybody talking about this book? And then I read it and my question was answered. So all I wanted was to join the hype. All I wanted was to be a part of the club that reads dark academia books. Okay, I tried reading Donna Tartt. She is the most racist writer who's ever lived. It still blows my mind that y'all continue to recommend and boost her books. That's a whole other video. Oh, I seriously hate that woman so much. I'm physically trying to force myself from not going on a rant about Donna Tartt. Focus, Jessie. Focus, Jessie.
Focus, Jessie.
Oh, yes, the Ancient Nine and how it ruined my life. You know what? I should thank this book. I should be thanking this book because it showed me, it proved to me that my life can, in fact, get worse. That my suffering does have another level. I rarely believe that books are all entirely bad, yeah? I think even books that have just some reprehensible themes and lines and messages in them, I tend to think that there's at least one good thing about that book. So I'm going to talk about the good of this book. There are some really cool things about this book. Unfortunately, those things, it can fit on the head of a thimble, as can the author's penchant for writing. No joke, if I was in the emergency room and I was bleeding out and this man walked into the room, I would just die on purpose on the table. I would be like, you know what? It's my time.
I'ma die anyway.
The thing that I loved about this book was how intense and intricate the mystery was. That becomes annoying to me later.
We'll talk about that later.
I will say, for folks who love a mystery that is really complex and involves multiple elements, Spencer went through great lengths to uncover all of the aspects of this mystery. And the more that he uncovered, the more intricate the mystery became. That was really impressive. I loved how this book used a lot of mixed media format in order to be more exciting in regards to delivering the components of the mystery. You will get to read ancient documents that Spencer himself is reading. There's also newspaper clippings, and you get to actually read the newspaper, these articles. If you love a really intricate, slowly established, very methodical mystery, then you would probably enjoy the mystery in this book. The writer's MD definitely shows in the way that he crafted this mystery. I think he did a really phenomenal job in that regards. Also, the book talks at length about Harvard's history, and not just with the history of secret societies, history about how Harvard was founded and important figures, and just tons of factoids about Harvard that the average person wouldn't know. I learned loads about Harvard through this book, and I thought that that was pretty cool. Those were literally the two things that I liked about this book. Literally the two things. This book is... How long is this book? It was 416 pages of torment, agony, and pain. 416. I don't know why I had to suffer for this long. And for what? For what? For what? Where do I even begin on this book? Okay, let's start at the beginning. I'm gonna work my way through this. I'm gonna be articulate, okay? Spencer has never given a backstory. I am not joking. I am not exaggerating. Chapter 1 begins with Spencer waking up in his dorm because somebody slid a envelope under his door, and the envelope contains the invitation to a cocktail party where these other people who are being vetted to join the secret society are all attending to kind of begin to compete for a place in the society. He's already at Harvard when we meet him. And as I read the book, I got to about page 63 and I was like, wait a second. Was he just born in the dorm? What was his house like growing up? What's his favorite color? What is his personality? We got no information about this man. I read 416 pages, and all I know about this boy's history is that he grew up in a poor town in Chicago, and his mom was a single mother, and his father was killed. That was the full extent of exploring his background. And that could have been forgiven. I really could have let that go. Don't get me wrong, it would have bothered me. But if we had also had some great characterization moving forward to apologize for that egregious oversight, then I think I could have let it go. However, Spencer is the same person that he was at the beginning of the novel as he was at the end of the novel, which is unfortunate because he wasn't a character to begin with. There was no character. We just have a narrator named Spencer. There's no character. There is no Spencer.
Spencer has no personality.
I don't know why I had to read 416 pages. I'm gonna keep repeating this. I don't care if it gets repetitive. I don't know why I had to read 416 pages, and not one of those pages could have been devoted to a memory from from his childhood, his first girlfriend. Did he ever have a goldfish? I don't know. What's this motherfucker's middle name? Who is he? How did I read a whole book and the main character is still a stranger? First of all, who is the editor? Where were they? And why weren't they doing their job? At no point did anybody who was reading this book go, hey, you literally have no character. At no point did somebody sit Ian Smith down and go, okay, well, maybe we should at least pretend to build up this character. He literally said, we are going to have a dark academic story, and that's it. No character. No main character. He said, no, nah, we're not doing that. The character is a black man attending Harvard from a poor neighborhood. That's his whole character. That is the extent of the characterization. I cannot stress that enough. And I have never in my entire life read a book that neglected character work so severely. And I am a character-driven reader. I do not care about the story if your characters are not well established. I don't even have to like the character. I don't even have to want to root for the character. But there must be a character. I didn't think it was possible to write a book where there was no characterization. It's so weird. I feel like I'm in the frickin' Twilight Zone. I need to stop talking about that because it's just, I already have enough gray hair. So, on top of that, the telling versus showing, there was no showing. It was just all telling. I still want to know what the editor was doing. Were they on vacation? What was going on in everybody's life who was responsible for publishing this book that nobody sat this man down and pointed out the glaring issues? That isn't even getting into the transphobia. That's coming.
Oh, it's coming.
You gotta wait for it, just like I did. I should have known it was coming. You know what? It didn't get delivered until 228 pages into the novel. I had to wait for it. You gonna wait for it too. The real mystery is, how did this book get published? Assign a detective to that case. I want an investigative team. Find me a reporter. An anonymous tip, something. I swear to God, I'm gonna stop talking about how he has no character. I'm going to read you the 2 sentences about Spencer explaining who he is on the inside of the book jacket. And I am telling you, these 2 sentences are everything we learn about Spencer's character. I cannot express enough how much I am not exaggerating. Okay, here we go. An unlikely Harvard prospect, smart and athletic, strapped for cash, determined to succeed, calls his mother, who raised him on her own in Chicago, every week. That's Spencer. That's all we learn. All right. Okay, cool. Say that we're going to accept and excuse the fact that character work doesn't exist in this novel. Therefore, the setting of this book and the events that happen throughout it must therefore be strong enough to justify this story. And they were not. If secret society life was explored and critiqued at great lengths, it would be understandable why the character work ended up sliding so far into hell. One thing I could not figure out while reading this book, I was so perplexed, was why race was such a non-issue in the novel. This book is set in 1988, and the sexism of this period is explored at great lengths. We're gonna get to that next. We're gonna get to the misogyny and the treatment of women in this book. Spencer is a black kid from the south side of Chicago who is vetted by this all-white secret organization that exists within one of the most notoriously white academic institutions
In the world.
And as he's navigating these very, very closed and private circles, so private that members can literally be kicked out for even letting somebody walk up the steps, like incredibly private. The members of these clubs are literally passed down through generations. Every kid must still go through the vetting process and isn't guaranteed a slot, but most of the people in this club are descended from family that was also a part of these secret societies. They were literally bred and raised to be a part of these secret societies at Harvard. And it is talked about so much how these secret societies were specifically established by white men and how hard those white men worked to keep women out of these societies. That was explored at length. It was consistently repeated about how misogynistic and sexist these men are. Spencer is constantly observing the sexism. There's a few times where he expresses to himself being uncomfortable with it, but he works through his discomfort quite quickly every single time in order to continue navigating these spaces. He never brings up the sexism with other people in the novel or challenges it or speaks up for the women that are getting this poor treatment. Again, I could even let that go because, to be perfectly honest, this man doesn't even have a character. So how is he going to be in a position to advocate for other people's characters, you know? But it was so freaking odd that he was being depicted as going into these circles and everybody was cool with it. It was so weird. In 1988, at Harvard, your black ass was just walked through the door and was like, what's good? And everybody accepted you right away. Spencer does talk about how he is ostracized because of his poverty, but never because of his race. And some people do make unwelcoming comments, but those never have anything to do with his race. His race is completely not an issue in the book. And I could have let that go if the sexism hadn't been pushed so heavily. So why are you going to talk about the marginalization of women, but not the marginalization of the main freaking character? Also, I'm just gonna say it. How was he from the south side of Chicago? Chicago seemed to have very little impact on his life. And again, maybe that's because we didn't get to hear anything about him being from the south side of Chicago and what that looked like for him. But we did get it beaten over the head that that's where he came from and how he had a working class mama and how he was so poor growing up. The way that he spoke was so very traditional, like very traditional white English. That's the way that I speak. That is the way that I spoke as a kid. But it's just really strange that he never talks about having to code switch. It doesn't make sense that he would never in his life have used slang at ever. Even when he's with his best friend, he still uses very proper English. Even when he's alone and narrating his own thoughts, very proper English. And I want to make it perfectly freaking clear that if you do not use African American vernacular expression, if you don't use slang and colloquialisms, if you don't dress the way black people are expected to dress, you are still valid as a black person. I'm not criticizing the way that his character was written specifically because he didn't do anything that was classically black or fit any of those stereotypes. But it was so strange how his culture, even in private, it wasn't a part of his life at all. And that just doesn't make sense to me with a character who grew up surrounded by black people. There were no other black characters in this novel, and it does make sense because he is at this all-white institution, mostly white institution, and at no point did he ever feel lonely because of his blackness. Did he ever call a black friend back home in order to let off some steam? It was weird. Like, he just didn't feel black to me. I just really did not connect with the black representation in this book. It didn't speak to me. Other black readers, if it spoke to you, I would love to know. It was glaringly absent, this character's black identity. You cannot tell me if these white men are that sexist that they're just gonna let your black ass walk through the door with open arms and then you're all gonna hold hands and chant "Lift Every Voice" and sing. I don't believe it. It wouldn't happen. My one thought that I kept thinking as I'm reading this oddly post-racial secret society that exists in Harvard is that since this author has talked about being a part of Harvard clubs and is well connected at Harvard, perhaps he didn't feel comfortable talking about race at all in this novel because maybe that would put stress on the relationships that he has with these people in his personal life, which I can totally understand. And black authors don't have to talk about race if they don't want to. They are not obligated to do that, right? Black authors get to write about whatever the hell they want to write about as far as I'm concerned, so long as it isn't appropriating somebody else's experience, etc. Like within reason, yeah? Then why include sexism in the novel if you're going to erase racism? Racism. He's a racism. Please don't unsubscribe. I'm gonna do what this book did and just move on from the subject of race entirely.
Oh, wait, I'm sorry.
I'm sorry, there is one scene where race comes up.
This shit killed me.
This killed me. I was so mad about this scene. I was like, bruh, you could have just left this out. I don't know who you were trying to impress, but it's not me. So there's a scene where Spencer goes to a Black Student Union, a BSU meeting, and the BSU was like, yeah, we gotta challenge these white-only clubs, or these traditionally white clubs that keep brothers and sisters out. And Spencer, for the first time, thinks, oh, you're right, these are largely white clubs that have put so many measures in place to prevent Black people from joining, people of color from joining. And then he goes, you know what? I'm going to change it from the inside. I'm going to join and I'm going to change these institutions from the inside out. And that meeting is the excuse that he needs in order to really devote himself to joining this club. Because up until that meeting, he wasn't certain if he wanted to be a part of the club at all.
Here's why I don't buy that.
That whole exchange took place over the span of one fucking page. And it was never mentioned again. His whole, I'm doing this for Black people, it was one page, and that's being generous. It was, if I remember correctly, it was a paragraph, maybe two. It was quicker than a man in bed. Oh yeah, so you went to a meeting and now you're down. What killed me about this is then he didn't make any attempt to connect with any other Black people on campus. There was clearly a whole club, so he had opportunities. You were so inspired, but then you continue to isolate yourself from other Black people. Make it make sense. And I don't really think that this is a spoiler because, given what I've told you so far, I think anybody really can conclude that this book does not end with racial enlightenment. These clubs just becoming a fun free-for-all for BIPOC folks and a safe space for women and queer folks. I think it's pretty safe to say that that does not happen. And it doesn't. Spencer didn't do shit. Spencer did nothing to change this club from inside out. I was mad about that scene. We didn't need that scene at all. I would be less angry about how Blackness was treated in this book if that scene had not been in there. I thought it was so rude and disrespectful to just let Black people's opinions against these clubs be featured on one page for 2 paragraphs, and to be literally a footnote in this book. It was oddly offensive. I couldn't mess with it, especially coming from a Black man who attended one of these institutions. I just, make it make sense. Make it make sense. What did I do to deserve my misery? What did I do? I'm about to put a hit on myself. Who wanna assassinate me? I got $2 and some change. My desire to live before reading this book was nothing more than a slowly burning ember. And this book put it out. This is what this book did to my desire to live. Look, you see that? That's my desire to live going up in smoke. If that wasn't bad enough, we have to talk about how the women were treated in this novel. All of the women, and I can't even count Mom because she's not even a character. They have a few phone calls throughout the span of the novel. All of the women in this book are either sex workers, maids, servants, or very promiscuous party girls. The only time that these characters interact with women, I'm not freaking kidding, I'm not being dramatic, is if they are homely librarians or servants in the houses of the people in the clubs. They also pop up whenever the boys from their little white boys club win a contest, and then women will be flown in, and I cannot make this up. Women are literally, there's a scene where women are lined up and they are all naked except for a pair of high heels, and the boys just go through and pick which one they want to sleep with. So disgusting. And I know that this book was set in 1988. I know that this book features clubs that were very anti-woman and also is supposed to reflect the way men of these clubs would treat these women. I get that. One little point, then why didn't we do the same thing with race, especially because the author's Black and could have done it. We're gonna let that go. Why did it need to be so graphic and heavy? Why? What was the reason? And then there is this odd Madonna whore complex. The only woman who is, of course, Spencer's love interest, she was quite honestly treated as the taming of the shrew. She was this very conservative but beautiful, even though she doesn't know it, Black girl who was mixed race and had relatively light skin. and was just very traditionally respectable. All she cared about was work and school. She was the only woman in this book that was given characterization or treated with respect, and that was specifically because she wasn't promiscuous. She acted the way that women were supposed to act, and she does initiate conversations about race with Spencer. So yes, those conversations do happen through her character, but they do not impact the story. They do not change where the story goes. Nothing in the story is truly affected by that commentary. It's just sprinkled in, and those sprinklings are just a way to show how great and down and woke this girl is, and to demonstrate why she's worthy of becoming Spencer's wife or life partner, because that's what he's looking for. I'm not going to say whether or not that happens. And also, it was super freaking problematic how she expresses multiple times in the beginning that she wants nothing to do with him, that she's not interested. And then, of course, his charm and stalking slowly weighs down at her attempts at resistance. There is also a scene where Dalton, Spencer's friend, is having dinner with his father, and they have a long-standing rivalry, and his father's constantly cheating on his mother with these women that work in the house. And there's a scene where one of the women is, setting a tray of food down in front of Dalton, and he grabs her ass. I can't remember if it was her ass or her chest, but it was so disgusting. And what was worse about it was not only was it not depicted as a problem, nobody batted an eye. I mean, his father was jealous about it, but the woman was depicted as having enjoyed it. It was ridiculous how sexualized women were, but also how punished they were if they were unattractive. The descriptions of unattractive women were just so, this man hates women. And it honestly just didn't feel like,
oh, this is the 80s.
There was no commentary to support that. These men were just trash. Electric chair. Okay, so I'm gonna correct myself. It wasn't as short as I thought it was. It took place over the span of 2 pages. From here to here, this is all of the commentary we got from Black people sharing their perspectives about Harvard. And when the BSU folks are saying, these things need to be changed, and Spencer's just like, yeah, I don't see racism at this school. Maybe it's because I become one of them and didn't even know it. Electric chair. Then we have to talk about the transphobia. It wasn't just cis women that had to be attacked. He had to come for the trans girls too. I'm just gonna read the scene. Okay. So there's a scene where Spencer and his buddy go to this bar called the Pink Bitch. Obviously, this is already going well. So they are approached by these 2 really beautiful girls. I didn't know what the issue was with this sentence, and it made me uncomfortable, but I couldn't figure out why. And he's making out with one of the girls, and he describes her as having a muscular tongue. And I was like, what? What is it doing? Crunches? I'm sorry. Becky was a spectacular kisser, and her tongue was remarkably strong. She placed one hand behind my head and rested the other between my legs. I kissed Becky, and that's when I felt it. And I went, oh no, please don't do it. Don't do it, Ian. Ian, no. I thought it was her pocketbook at first, but then I looked at her shoulders and there wasn't a strap. I thought it might be something in her hands, but her hands were around my waist. I reached down in the dark, moving my hands around, trying to find it. I did. I screamed. Becky backed up against the wall, a look of horror stretching her eyelids to the top of her forehead. Did they really? I tried to say something, but my mouth wouldn't form words, so I just screamed again. Holy shit, I yelled. We have to get the hell out of here. Now. What the hell is wrong with you, my friend said. Things are going great. I grabbed him by the collar. They're guys, I said. They're not girls. They're girls dressed up like guys. I reached around Pollock, grabbed Cindy's hair and tugged it. She screamed and fought me, but I managed to fling the wig to Pollock. Holy shit, he yelled. He threw the wig back at Cindy and stood there frozen, a look of horror contorting his face. Cindy had gotten the wig back on with one hand and held the other across her chest. So many things about the book made sense after reading that. You could argue that it was the 80s, but you would be lying to yourself, and you would be wasting both of our time. So let's just skip. You can just erase that comment that I know you were ready to type. There is no excuse for that. There is no fucking excuse for that. And if you don't know what the issue is with that, I can't help you. I was so sick reading that. Not only the reaction, but the fact that he felt the urge to publicly humiliate this girl, and that she is clearly traumatized in this scene. Like, she doesn't get angry, which anger would have been an appropriate response. You know, that would have been valid. But she's clearly just hurt. The one thing I could say about all of this is that maybe Ian Smith wrote a villainous character. Maybe his point was to show, hey, this dude fucking sucks. And he thinks he's a much better person than he is. And that was like the thriller component. I really don't think that was it though, especially because there's no social commentary to support it. There was no real commentary on Ivy League secret societies at all. There was mentioning at length, to be fair, about the greed and the privilege, all of those components, but nothing was done about them. None of those characters grew, and there was nothing new added to that conversation by the end of the novel. No, literally nobody grew. At first, I gave this book 2 stars because the premise was so cool, and I really thought the history was great, and I loved that the mystery was intricate. And I'm after filming this video and just really thinking about this book and how sick it made me, I'm just gonna give it 1 star. It's a 1 star for me, dog. If you have any recommendations for a BIPOC dark academia novel, points if the novel is not set in the United States or in the West at all, please let me know. I would love to read it, but this one ain't it. And if you're looking for a great BIPOC thriller, I would urge you away from this one. Also, the mystery, while yes, very intricate, it really didn't interest me. Partially because these characters sucked. They were all shitty fucking people. And then on top of that, I couldn't bring myself to care about the history, the legacy of these racist, sexist white men either. So even the mystery itself, I didn't care about. That was my experience with this novel. I can never get that time back. If you want to show me that you suffered alongside me throughout the duration of this video, drop a torch emoji in the comment section or write the word torch, just because torches are actually a big part of this novel and torch symbolism. And if you want to read this novel, if you think it's something that you might like, I think that's great. Go for it. I'm not going to tell you not to read it, but it is not a book that I recommend. Like, in all seriousness, I think that the book is harmful. So if you do decide to read it, I would just be mindful of these things going into it. That is going to do it for this video. If you want more content from me, you can follow me on my Instagram, which is bowtiesandbooks, but all of my social media links will be in the description box below. Until next time, stay safe, wear your funking mask, and I hope to see you in my next video. Kill me.